In terms of new generation model changes, this is a big one. The Hyundai Santa Fe, we all know it. It's been around as a large SUV for quite a long time in Australia, but this new one looks nothing like the previous generation whatsoever. It's bigger, it's boxier, and it's got a really interesting design going on, and I think it really stands out as well in comparison to other Hyundai vehicles. But the question is this new Santa Fe any good? We're currently here in Korea, right in the midst of the city at the moment. We're going to have our first chance to drive this new large SUV from Hyundai. It's going to be a 7-seater, there's going to be new powertrains, lots of new technology as well. So if you're in the market for a new family car in 2024, you're going to want to watch this video. Let's have a look at the details. We are yet to know exactly what kind of pricing is in store for the Australian market when the Santa Fe arrives in local dealerships next year. What we do know, however, is that it will arrive firstly with a 1.6-litre turbocharged petrol hybrid powertrain that has a combined output of 169 kilowatts and 350 newton meters and runs through a 6-speed torque converter automatic gearbox. This new Santa Fe will also come with a 2.5-litre turbocharged petrol engine. That comes out of the Sonata and it replaces the option of a naturally aspirated V6. This makes 206 kilowatts and 421 newton meters, running through an 8-speed dual-clutch automatic gearbox. However, we aren't sure whether the current 2.2-litre diesel engine option will be carried over for this new generation model. In comparison to the previous generation model, this new Santa Fe is about 50 millimeters longer overall, and the wheelbase has grown by about 50 mils as well. It's slightly taller, but the same width of 1900 mils carries over. And like the previous generation model, this new Santa Fe has room for 7 on board, with 2 up front, 3 in the middle, and 2 in the back. We're standing at arguably the most controversial angle of this new Santa Fe, at the back. Some people like it, some don't. It's a little bit polarizing, and I guess it's similar to what Hyundai have been doing recently. Think about Ioniq 6, that's a little bit polarizing. Ioniq 5, I think that's more of a hit overall. But this one, I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think this is a good looking car from the back? Do you like it? Do you think maybe not so good? One thing I do want to talk about is the size of the car overall. I'm standing here now, and you kind of assume when you look at the pictures that this vehicle is really big. You think kind of Land Rover Defender in terms of overall size. It's not. It's not actually that tall overall. Shopping centre car parks, that sort of thing, that's not going to be an issue. Although it is definitely bigger than the previous generation model. Certainly it's a lot less sleek, a lot more boxy. We'll talk about interior space a little bit later, but in terms of design, we've got some interesting things going on here. These tail lights are interesting. They sit quite low on the back, and I think that's part of the different look of this Santa Fe overall. They wrap around the sides as well. The sides cinch in quite a little bit. It's got a different look, absolutely, and you've got a H motif there, which I really like. This car looks great at night. That motif is up the front as well. But I think some of the interesting stuff is from the side, where I think you really see how boxy this car is overall. It's longer in terms of length and also in terms of wheelbase in comparison to the previous generation Santa Fe. And it's going to yield more interior space overall. I'll get to that in a minute. But before I do, I just want to show you the front of this car because I reckon it's the most appealing angle of it overall. It's clean and it's simple, but also modern and boxy. It's that shape that everyone seems to love at the moment. I love the headlights, and this model has active shutters on the front there. It's a hybrid model. There's more powertrains coming for Australia, and I'll get through all of those details as much as I know at the moment anyway. But next, let's have a look at the interior because I think that is such an important element for a family SUV. Let's have a look. Here's the interior of the new Santa Fe, and I think it's the major strength of this vehicle, and it's going to be the most appealing element for families as well. Hyundai have really focused on practicality and storage. It's one of my favorite things when I look at a family car, and Hyundai have done really well here, I think. Let's start with this center console area here. There's a fair bit going on. Twin wireless charging pads there. We've got 2 USB-C power outlets, and we've got big storage area underneath as well. That works well. There's also a 12-volt plug hiding down there, 2 cup holders, and then this center console opens from the front, also from the back. There's another one which I'll get to when I get into the second row there. It's actually a really cool trick. In front of the passenger here, we've got a small glove box there. That's actually got a weird UV cleaning function, which is quite interesting there. You can close that, press this button and it supposedly sanitizes some things that you put in there via UV light. Quite interesting. There's another storage shelf there above the glove box. So in terms of just putting things in places, you've got a lot of options for all of that stuff you tend to carry around with you. But otherwise, in terms of looks, I think this interior is fantastic as well. The climate controls, they've got a combination of digital buttons here, but also dials and physical buttons. So it works from a practicality point of view. It also looks modern and clean. Then we've got these twin 12.3 curved infotainment displays. We've seen that on the Kona. We've seen that on the Sonata. Now we're going to have it in the Santa Fe. It's a good system. The infotainment's great. And the digital cluster in front of the driver provides a fair amount of information as well. So what to like the most about this Santa Fe interior? It's got to be the storage, but let's have a look at how much space is in the second row. Now we're in the second row of this Santa Fe, and first thing to talk about, as always, is space overall. That's my driving position up front there, and I've got a lot of leg room left over there. Headroom is really good as well. Once again, that boxy shape yields dividends for the interior of this car. The seating position is a little bit high as well, so visibility is good out the front, it's good out the sides. I find that kids really appreciate when they can see what's going on. Tend to be a lot happier for longer trips and that sort of thing. We've also got a sliding second row in the back here with a 60-40 split. Now that's for the third row. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But in terms of space and comfort, this does look really, really good. Now some other things I like, twin cup holders in the doors. You can also fit a bottle lower down actually. So even if you don't have drinks in there, it's just really handy additional storage to have around the place. You've got these little hooks on the backs of the seat. And I like what's going on here with this center console because on top of having access into the center console like that, you can also open this shelf from down lower as well. And it's all part of the same space. Let me just show you. I've got my wallet here. Going to open this up, pull this little tray out of the way. I'll pop that in there. There you go. Look, that's one big space for everyone to access. It actually works really well. I haven't seen that before. It's a really good idea, I think. Some other things that I do like to see, USB-C power outlets there. They're mounted on the backs of the seats. These specs will change slightly according to what we get in Australia and the different spec levels, but you can expect the higher spec models to have a lot of cool things, just like sun blinds, lots of power outlets, heated seats, and all of that sort of thing. We'll wait for all of those details as they come, but as a first look, this car looks to really, really fit the bill as a family vehicle. This new Santa Fe does get a helpful increase in boot space as well, with Hyundai claiming 1,148 litres of space available. They say that is 120 litres better than the previous generation model. Now we're behind the wheel of this new Santa Fe. We're on Korean roads at the moment, so it's not going to be a perfect indication of what we get in Australia, but it's a great first taste to see what is in store. Let's talk about powertrains to start with, because I'm currently driving the 1.6 litre hybrid powertrain. This is in front-wheel drive, guys. It's going to be a little bit different to what we actually get in Australia when this Santa Fe first comes, because we're getting the all-wheel drive hybrid. We've also spent time driving the 2.5 litre turbocharged Santa Fe. That's the same engine that you get in the Sonata in Australia. That effectively replaces the V6. We're not 100% sure whether we'll get that in Australia, but I would hazard a guess that we probably will. Now, the other question is diesel. We don't know yet whether the 2.2 litre turbo diesel, which Australians love at the moment, will carry on with this new generation. We're going to find out as soon as we can and let you know, but as for the moment, we're unsure. But let's talk about this hybrid powertrain, because if the diesel's not around and you're looking at the Santa Fe, you're probably going to want to lean towards this hybrid because it's a little bit more efficient and you can get a bit further out of each tank before you need to refill. And in terms of when you're driving this powertrain, it does feel nice and smooth in terms of blending those power sources. Once you punch it down a little bit, it's 1.6 litre engine and the electric motor actually gives you decent acceleration here. It's not as powerful as the 2.5 turbo, of course, but it's good enough, I think, for what this car needs to do. The engine does start to sound a little bit thrashy when you're really getting up it, but on the flip side of that, when you're cruising around town like we're doing at the moment, 50 k's an hour, slowing down for traffic lights and that sort of thing, if you drive smoothly, the engine actually is off for a fair amount of time. as you're coasting, it's saving fuel, and the electric motors are doing the heavy lifting there. That is a nice thing, and it's really good for fuel economy. Now, once you take off from a set of lights, the electric motor doesn't let you take off up to 30 or 40 or 50. The petrol engine does kick in relatively early, so you're not going to get a really electric car driving experience, so to speak. But from these impressions so far, you do seem to get a good net balance of efficiency out of the vehicle, so I think that is more important. Now, in terms of ride comfort, I'll point out that we're currently driving a car on 18-inch alloy wheels, and it seems to be the choice from what I can tell so far in terms of having the best ride around town. Once you start to build up speed, the vehicle we were driving earlier on 20-inch wheels did feel good at higher speeds. Maybe there was a touch of jerkiness at lower speeds. But at the moment, this car feels really comfortable and easy to drive. Even in the second row and the third rows driving around the place, this does have nice absorption and just general comfort, I suppose. It's got, you would almost say, an American style tune to it, I suppose. Feeling perhaps a little floaty for some tastes, but for an SUV that's going to be loaded up, cruising around town, taking on potholes and speed bumps all the time, I think it fits the bill quite well. Now, when you start pumping the car through corners and that sort of thing, it's not a driver's car. Let's get that point out of the way to start with. So in terms of steering feel or feedback or direction changes, this isn't the right car to be talking about, but at the same time, it's perfectly good enough, I think. As you start to drive through corners, it goes where you point it. It might not feel fantastic when you're doing it, but it feels safe and composed, and I think that's really important in terms of when you are driving around on slippery surfaces and that sort of thing. But of course, we will wait until we have the car in Australia for our full final verdict, because as we understand, there are a few different tunes available in the global market for this Santa Fe, and it's currently unclear as to what we will exactly get in the Australian delivered version. So it's efficient, it's comfortable, it handles well enough. I just really hope that Hyundai Australia is able to get the diesel. I'm sure that they're really keen for it. Don't forget that the current Santa Fe, 70% of those that currently sell are diesel powered. So no doubt Hyundai Australia is aware of that, and they're going to get the diesel if they can. But this hybrid might be a decent solution if that diesel does not arrive. And of course, if you want a bit more grunt, and you don't mind using a bit of extra fuel, the 2.5 turbo is also definitely worth a look, with nice mid-range torque available. But I've got to say, I think this Santa Fe, it feels good, and it might put a fair amount of pressure onto the Palisade, being Hyundai's largest SUV overall. Yes, the Palisade might be able to fit more, it might be bigger, but hey, this is feeling like it might even start breathing down its neck a little bit. Now, in terms of fuel economy, we don't have a perfect idea yet of what we'll get in the Aussie delivered models. This is a front-wheel drive version we are in at the moment, so it's going to be more efficient than the all-wheel drives we get in Australia when this Santa Fe launches, but I'll give you an indication with the information I have at the moment. This car at the moment has just ticked over 400 kilometers. I haven't done all of those 400. I've been driving 2.5 turbos instead, but I'll tell you, from those 400, the guys who have been driving it told us that they were doing some recce's for good filming locations, and they were not driving for economy. And currently, we're sitting at 7 litres per 100 Ks. So the all-wheel drive might use a little bit more fuel, and of course the 2.5 turbo will use more as well. Exactly what, we don't know yet. We'll wait until this car fully launches in Australia. We don't know what pricing is going to be like for this new Santa Fe when it lands in Australia. And of course, that's going to be such an important part of how this vehicle performs overall in terms of the success. But I've got to say, there is a lot to like about this car. The main strength for me is just the size and the comfort and the practicality of the interior. It's much more spacious than the previous generation Santa Fe, which is a little bit more of a 5+2. I think this is even going to put a little bit of pressure on the Palisade, to be honest with you, which is even larger again. This is practical and comfortable, but also not too big. We'll see how these powertrains play out in terms of specifications as well, but this is going to hit the right notes for a lot of Australians who need 7 seats.